So the tragedy of Syria will long plague the international community, and it will always be part of U.S. President Barack Obama's legacy as he wraps up his term next month. Ben Rhodes has been alongside the president since the beginning, first writing his foreign policy speeches, and since late 2009, he's been Deputy National Security Advisor, and he joins me now from Washington. Ben Rhodes, welcome to the program. I mean, it can't be easy for you all sitting there to see what's happening in Aleppo right now. And I do want to first start by asking you why the president has not made public remarks about it. One of your own former ambassadors to Russia said, maybe time for POTUS to speak in public about this crime against humanity, even if no actions can be taken. Why is the president not talking about it, Mr. Rhodes?
Well, Christiane, good to be with you. He'll certainly have the opportunity to speak about the situation in Aleppo over the coming days. And so, I would expect that you will hear from him. We have been outspoken about the situation in Syria, of course, for some time now, and we've also tried to exhaust every diplomatic effort we can to try to help those who are in need, including Secretary Kerry working exhaustively through the weekend with Russia to try to find some agreement for a safe passage for those civilians. Tragically, the Russians have not followed through on any agreement, either with us or recently with Turkey. We're going to continue those efforts because we are deeply concerned, heartbroken about the situation in Aleppo right now.
Can I ask you whether this is you said the president will say something, he'll have the opportunity to say something. You know, the IRC chairman, David Miliband, who's the former British foreign secretary, has called for the president and President-elect Trump to make a joint statement indicating that the United States will demand accountability for atrocities in Syria. Can you imagine that is something that's even possible between President Obama and the incoming President Donald Trump?
Well, we have one president at a time in our system, so I would not expect them to make a joint statement on foreign policy. Frankly, the president-elect is putting together his own team, formulating his own approach. We have supported accountability, including ICC referrals for crimes against humanity in Syria. We will continue, of course, to do so. We would urge the incoming administration to similarly support accountability for what's taking place.
And what is your answer to many people who are asking about the stain on this president's legacy, on this administration's legacy? I mean, the most unspeakable crimes being committed there. And, you know, the president's term is ending with this ongoing.
Look, we have lost many a night's sleep on this and spent hours and hours and hours in the Situation Room wrestling with this question. I think, Christiane, what we would say is, President Obama has been willing to use military force in different scenarios, including to protect civilians in Libya, when we had a clear military option to stop an advancing force on the city of Benghazi. I think the challenge that we face in Syria, even as we've exhausted every diplomatic effort, even as we've been the largest provider of humanitarian assistance for those in need, we have not had a military option that we felt could resolve the situation, could make the situation discernibly better. You have a brutal dictator backed by Russia and Iran. You have a variety of extremist groups who are fighting on the ground. And really, we have not had a military option that we believe could be implemented to resolve the situation.
Well, let me ask you then, because this is being handed off now to another president who has a much closer relationship, apparently, with the Russian president and has, as you've seen, nominated a Secretary of State who also has a very close personal relationship. Have you discussed within your own selves what you expect the ongoing U.S. policy towards Syria will be?
Well, Christiane, I think there are some basic U.S. interests that will endure under the next administration. We have prosecuted a very aggressive effort against ISIL in principally eastern Syria, pushed it out of a lot of territory, and are now focused on squeezing Raqqa, ISIL's self-declared caliphate. I think those efforts certainly will continue. I think as it relates to Russia, yes, you have seen a different tone taken by the incoming administration. The fact of the matter is, though, there is no end to the suffering, no end to the killing, no end to the refugee flows, absent a political resolution. Even in the aftermath of what's taking place in Aleppo, you still have large swaths of the country that are not controlled by the government. You still have huge opposition to Bashar al-Assad from a Sunni majority. There is going to have to be some form of diplomatic resolution to this crisis for there to be an end to the things that threaten the civilians inside of Syria and a number of very important U.S. interests.
So if Syria is a massive failure, Iran, the nuclear deal, is considered by most people around the world as a big success, and also the rapprochement with Cuba. What do you make of, and do you believe that the next administration will and can, quote unquote, rip up these deals, make better deals, whatever the terminology is? They don't like these deals. Can they do it? Can they get the United States and the world out of the Iran nuke deal, for instance?
Well, look, I think, first of all, these are connected. I think in Syria, part of what we wrestled with were the limits of what the U.S. can do with its military, and how do we learn lessons from Iraq. And one of the lessons that we have sought to apply in other places is that diplomacy needs to be front and center. So with Iran, you have a nuclear program that is rolled back without firing a shot. With Cuba, you have an opening that is bringing a better life to the Cuban people, but also has elevated American standing across our hemisphere. So we believe in the Paris climate deal, of course, also rallies the entire world to deal with the threat of climate change. I think we would make the case that these deals work on their own terms, that they're in U.S. interests. I think the other important thing, Christiane, is these are international agreements. It's not just a bilateral agreement between the Obama administration and Iran. This is the P5+1, the major European powers, Russia and China, all invested in this. Paris has 200 countries invested in it. So I think the incoming administration is going to have to contend with the fact that whatever criticisms they've made in the past, these are international agreements that are having an effect right now, and there's a huge cost to turning their backs on them.
Ben Rhodes, thank you very much indeed for joining us from the White House.